respected dignitaries, partners, and colleagues. On behalf of TERI, it is my privilege to welcome you all to this thematic track titled Accelerating AgriPV in India from Pilots to Policy-Led Scale-Up. This session is being held as a part of the 25th edition of the World Sustainable Development Summit. I am Ita Kettleborough, Research Associate with the Electricity and Renewables Division at TERI, and I will be your MC for this session. Before we convene, may I request you to kindly note the nearest exit. In case of any emergency, please remain calm and follow the instructions of the hotel staff and event staff. To begin with the inaugural session, I would like to invite our distinguished speakers to the dais, please. Starting with Mr. Umang Maheshwari, Managing Director, Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet. Ms. Ita Kettleborough, Director, Energy Transition Commission. Ms. Priya Shankar, India Director, Climate and Environment Program, Bloomberg Philanthropies. Dr. Shiv Kumar Kalyanaraman, CEO, Anusadhan National Research Foundation. Mr. Ashish Khanna, Director General, International Solar Alliance. And Mr. Santosh Kumar Sarangi, IAS, Secretary, MNRE, Government of India. To formally open this session, I would like Mr. Girish Sethi to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Ishita. So, welcome everybody to this session. My name is Girish. I head the energy program here at TERI. So, very warm welcome to this post-lunch session, which is on accelerating AgriPV in India from pilots to policy-led scale-up. I think, let me first of all say, I think many of you have come to this room, so I know there are at least 3 more parallel sessions going on as a part of the WSDS. So I guess all of you who have come to this room today are really interested in this subject of AgriPV. And to me, I think, let me say you will not be disappointed because there will be a lot to learn. We have close to around 18 to 20 speakers in this room in the next 1.5 hours or so, all experts in their respective fields, from policymakers to practitioners and also academicians. Everybody is there, I think, in the room today. But more importantly also, or equally importantly also, is that we will be releasing at least 5 reports and 1 tool on AgriPV today. And all these reports or the activities which we have been doing on AgriPV have been done along with our partners. So thanks to all our partners who have been, many of them are here in this room today. I think the first report which we are releasing is on AgriPV potential, and also another on unlocking solar at scale, the role of land, which is a clear subject of discussion when we're talking about AgriPV. Both these have been supported by GAP, I think, thanks to Umang, I think, and also ETC, our partner, who are here. Hi, Ita, I think. And ETC has been our partner for a long, long time, I think, and we're really happy to continue working with the Energy Transition Commission for the last so many years. The next set of reports which we will be releasing today, I think, are the baseline assessment reports of 2 practical projects, one in Madhya Pradesh and other in Telangana, where we have done an assessment, and those 2 reports also will be released shortly. And then, of course, there is another work, that work has been done as a part of a long-term partnership under the REI, Responsible Energy Initiative. And subsequently, I think another report on the framework for AgriPV, I think that's the work which we are doing with ICC, India Climate Collaborative. So all our partners are here in this room, so really thanks to all of them for the support which we have been giving on this subject. So I think as the subject, from the title itself very clearly says, we're talking about pilots and we're talking about scale up. So how do we really bridge this path? How do we really move to that scaling up of the AgriPV in the country? And I think, as you must have seen from the background notes which we have circulated earlier, I think presently there are less than, I think, around 35 or 40 pilots in the country. but what we are needing is many, many more, I think. So that's here the discussion will be focused on. So with these words, I would just like to end here and welcome our distinguished speakers here on the dais today, Mr. Santosh Kumar Sarangi, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Thank you, sir, for joining and taking time to come here. I think not just for this session, but I think the support which we as TERI have been getting from MNRE, from you and from your team over the years, I think that has been really great, and we are really thankful for all the support which we continue getting. I think recently, I think our team was there in your office, I think 3 or 4 weeks back, I think, on discussing on the RE potential and the integration issues. Of course, from Mr. Ashish Khanna, the DG ISA is there. Thank you, sir, also for the support. I think we are not doing any AgriPV project with ISA, as I remember, but I think we have been doing many other subjects on ISA, but we are doing a project in Bhutan. I think maybe somebody has to tell during the presentation. In Bhutan, we are doing a project selecting sites for AgriPV. It's a project supported by the Asian Development Bank. And then, of course, I think Priya ji is there, Mr. Shiv Kumar Kalyan and others, I think, who will be there in the next session. So with these words, I thank you all for coming to this session and look forward to the discussions.
Thank you, sir, for opening the session. Now I would request the distinguished speakers to kindly address the gathering from the podium. Firstly, I would like to invite Mr. Umang Maheshwari to share his remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Saxena, sir, for having us here. I'm not an expert in AgriPV. The only experience I have of AgriPV is around 15 years ago when I started looking at mini grids in rural UP and Bihar. And when we used to go to these mini grids, the guards, they used to sow some vegetables, some fresh vegetables, so we used to take them in the train back. And that is where I saw, glimpses of how, this ecosystem of agriculture and energy infrastructure, was meeting at a very small scale at that time. Of course, we all know that, solar has been the front runner technology when it comes to India's energy transition, and several more gigawatts are needed. And the challenge definitely, apart from all the challenges it brings, the variability brings to the grid, is the land. Of course, the land prices are also, shooting up. When we look at substations trying to acquire land for solar, there is an extreme increase in land prices, and there's always this battle, not only in India but in many countries around, what is the real good use of land? Is it agriculture? Is it energy infrastructure? And with this AgriPV discussion, I think there's an opportunity to bridge the gap between the two, so both can happen, in parallel. I think we know there are only 30 to 40, sites right now. This discussion has been happening for pilots, for almost 5 to 6 years. But I think with this report launch, this will probably take the mainstream, discussion now. We are very happy to, support this study with TERI and, the Energy Transition Commission, and have to look at the true potential what AgriPV, gets. I've looked at the draft of the study, and I think it takes a very cautious approach. It takes a very policy-driven approach. It looks at land which probably and the crops that should be completely protected. So I think the total potential, if I remember the numbers correctly, is around 47 million hectares of land. Can be used for both agri and solar. Of course, all of that will not be converted, but if it is, then around 2 terawatts of solar can be installed at these lands. So a very important discussion. I was also researching that what is happening in other markets, on my way here, and it seems in the past 3 years, like every other technology, China has really scaled AgriPV with almost 15 gigawatts of, AgriPV installations. And France, Germany, Spain, all of them are looking at new AgriPV laws, bringing incentives to farmers, helping them, ensure their crops if they're, putting PV alongside, their crops. The other thing is the innovation that is needed in technology. Of course, you need to look at dynamic shifting, bifacial, modules. Of course, this has its own cost. So who will bear that cost? that also needs to be taken care of. So yeah, we hope these two studies provide a grounded, evidence-based, research to policymakers, especially at the subnational level in our agrarian states, that can benefit from these, new policies and interventions that are needed to really meet the potential of AgriPV. At GAP, we look forward to take this from from conversations and pilots to action and scale, and look forward to partnering with all of you, in the next few months and years to take this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. We are very happy that Dr. Vibha Dhawan has joined our session right now. I would like you to please welcome you to the dais, ma'am. Moving forward with the special remarks, I would like to invite Miss Ita Kettleborough to please address the audience.
Do we have some slides? Colleagues and distinguished guests, on behalf of the Energy Transitions Commission, it's a real privilege to be part of this session with you all today. Our shared mission across TERI and the Energy Transitions Commission, a very long-standing partnership now, is very clear. Electrify the economy and decarbonise power fast enough to meet the challenge of climate change while raising living standards. And when we get clean, affordable electricity at scale, everything is easier. Industry, transport, cooling, digital services, and India's and the world's growth can accelerate. In the next 5 minutes, I'll cover 5 points. I might have some slides, or I might not have some slides, and if I don't, that's also fine. The first is a few words on India's structural advantage as a global Sunbelt economy, something you'll all be very familiar with, but we always feel it's worth really looking at how those numbers stack up. The second is the land question and the constraints on solar. The third is a very quick run through of some of the key results from our study that is launching today. The fourth, some implications for policy, and the fifth, of why this matters far beyond India. Wonderful. I think we do have some slides. So, first of all, if I can move one slide on, or 2 slides on actually, probably now. So, India sits in the global Sunbelt with excellent solar resources and a daily rather than a seasonal balancing challenge. An inherent system cost advantage compared with higher latitude power systems such as the UK story, where I am from, where there's less access to cheap solar, a greater reliance on more expensive offshore wind, and trickier seasonal balancing challenges when the wind doesn't blow. So in the power system of the future, meeting the energy transition, but also expanding energy access, you can really see the structural advantage that a country like India faces. Here you've got recent renewable auction results in India and the UK. Indian auction results 60% cheaper for round-the-clock solar at a fixed nominal price for the duration of the contract versus the offshore wind, which is the dominant renewable form that, for instance, the UK will be deploying. So India has already pioneered round-the-clock renewable auctions, showing that clearly, India can innovate in market design as well as technology, and that's why we were so excited to do this study with with TERI, looking at how India can pioneer how solar integrates with land and livelihoods and set an example that others will follow, as we've seen in the round-the-clock auctions. So the second question then is the land question, if we could move on to the next slide. So globally, we've done a lot of work at the global level, and we are very confident at the Energy Transition Commission that meeting the demands of an electrified global economy by mid-century, we can provide all of that electricity demand with solar on less than 1.5% of global land area. So in aggregate, we do not have a land constraint with solar. However, clearly, in densely populated nations across the world, the concern is very real. Complex land ownership structures slowing planning and permitting and increasing costs, as we've just heard from our colleague. Potential conflicts with agriculture, worries about the impact of solar on nature and on water. And in that context, we've seen in India, indeed, that this has often been cited as a reason that solar can't scale. And so that's what we wanted to do in our work with Terry, was really dive into that very real concern and look at, do we think that is a real barrier? And our partnership with Terry moves from this theory to evidence. It looks at national geospatial screening of the actual land typography, and along with bottom-up data on pilot yields from real programs to look at what the impacts might be. And on land, if you move to the next slide, one key finding is even with very conservative assumptions, which may prove to be overly conservative, but we wanted to go conservative, India could credibly host AgriPV on 24 million hectares of cropland, which is shown on the next slide. And that's deployable, not merely theoretical estimate. And in these, looking at these pilot studies, we also obviously looked at what that means for agricultural activity. As you'd expect, the pilots showed different results by crop type, with some leafy vegetables, fruits showing stable or higher yields, other crops it being more challenging. But that's really the depth of the work that the Terry team has done with partners, and that is going to be in the report that you can read about in more depth. What does this actually mean if you then translate this out of land over to power? That agricultural land could actually generate 20,000 terawatt hours of power per year. How big is that? On the next slide you'll see. Today, India uses just over 2,000 terawatt hours per year. In the future, Terry's estimate of what India could consume from the power system by mid-century is about 5,250 terawatt hours. And if that was the case, AgriPV on cropland alone could support 4 times that demand. Even in a high electrified scenario, so the darker blue box you see here, that's the BNEFs. They have a high electrification scenario for India, which believes that it could actually, power demand could get up to 10,000 terawatt hours a year. AgriPV from cropland alone could still supply double that. And when you add in on the right-hand side, you add in all the other potential land that could be dedicated to solar, the multiples keep getting bigger. This, of course, does not mean India should develop AgriPV on all of this land, but it means it could, and that land is not the binding constraint. So what does this mean what does this mean? So first of all, 3 very, very exciting implications. Energy at scale and lower cost. AgriPV can unlock India's solar advantage if we move on to the implementation that we'll be discussing later today to scale up. 2, the farmer resilience and income story. Well-designed AgriPV reduces heat and water stress, enables self-consumption, sale of surplus power, and strengthens farm cash flows. Incredibly exciting story there. And then on land and nature protection, co-location eases pressure to convert forests, ecologically sensitive land. So the policy ask is practical and immediate. Clear rules on AgriPV for agricultural land, faster distribution level capacity upgrades, bankable offtake models that work for farmers and discoms. And we're really delighted to be working with Terry, who are supporting on the practical steps to unlock this potential going forward. So very finally for me, my 5th point, the ETC, why does this matter globally? The ETC is a global coalition. We're focused on scalable, system-led solutions to the energy transition. If AgriPV works at scale in India, a densely populated country with a fast-growing power system, then it can work across the wider global Sunbelt, South and Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa and Latin America, all regions where demand will surge, solar is cheap, and land tensions are acute. So the insight is simple but very powerful. Solar abundance and food security do not have to compete. With good design, AgriPV delivers cheap, clean power, stronger farm resilience and incomes, and protections for nature, all while accelerating the energy transition to meet what the science demands that we must. And this is why we are so excited about our partnership with Terry, and why for us these findings matter far beyond India. So India's already led on renewable auctions, on solar cost breakthroughs. By pioneering AgriPV, India can de-risk the model for the world, really, and build an abundant, low-cost, nature-positive power system that lifts living standards at speed. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your insightful remarks. Now I would like to call upon Miss Priya Shankar for delivering her special remarks.
Hello, and congratulations to our partners at TERI for this 25th anniversary of the World Sustainable Development Summit. We've been delighted to partner with TERI for a few years across WSDS and a lot of their renewable energy development work and portfolio. So it's great to see the progress being made on innovative new areas such as AgriPV. At Bloomberg Philanthropies, we support work in 700 cities in 150 countries around the world. And our mission is to ensure better and longer lives for the greatest number of people. Looking at that mission, accelerating clean energy, renewable energy is a key part of our global environmental work. Here in India, we've been delighted with our partners at the India Climate Collaborative and the National Solar Energy Federation of India, and TERI and CSTEP. I'm sure you're going to hear from some of them later, to support the India Agrivoltaics Alliance, which has brought together a range of different stakeholders working on agrivoltaics potential and engaging with sort of different stakeholders from different perspectives across, communities, technical institutions, governments on what needs to be done and how it can be improved. And we've heard about a lot of the points for why AgriPV is really important from Umang and Ita, whether that's kind of land constraints or whether that's improvements in crop yields and reliability. I would just like to emphasize a couple of other additional points. I think one other point that I'm keen to emphasize is the angle around jobs and being able to sort of link that to economic growth. According to IRENA, now there are 16 million jobs in renewable energy worldwide, and that is set to grow, and India really is at the kind of forefront of this. At some of the research that the AgriPV Alliance had done, looking at women participants and women stakeholders across India, they found that utilizing decentralized renewable energy technologies could improve livelihoods by 20 to 50%, which also generates a lot of interest in AgriPV. An additional point that I'd like to emphasize is the health angle, and perhaps less so in India now where this transition is happening, but more in kind of African countries. There's a lot of air pollution coming from using older polluting sources of fuel, and if we're able to sort of transition that away and we're able to get newer technologies such as AgriPV, which have so much potential, it really has lots of benefits in terms of people's health through reduction of air pollution at a local source. So I think those are the two additional angles. I think a lot of other things have already been said. And I think we at Bloomberg Philanthropies are really pleased with our collaborations with TERI, and also, of course, with the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy on the solar rooftop program, and just want to congratulate India on its leadership and incredible progress that it's made on renewable energy over the last several years, but I think particularly in the last year, it's been incredible to see the progress. So thank you, and looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now we'll invite Dr. Shiv Kumar Kalyanaraman to please address the audience.
Namaskar. First, my respects to all the dignitaries on the dais, especially Secretary Menari, who is also on my board, Executive Council of Anusandhan National Research Foundation, and Ashish Khanna ji, whom we met just a few days back as well, and all the other colleagues. So I take care of ANRF, Anusandhan National Research Foundation. So since it's a new foundation, I generally try to begin my conversation by asking a show of hands. How many of you know about ANRF? It's a quick okay, not too bad. Okay, all right. So Anusandhan National Research Foundation is a statutory body of the Government of India. Think of it like a national science foundation of the United States. But we have a larger mandate as a statutory foundation. We are presided by the Honorable Prime Minister of India himself. This is a foundation which is a mechanism used by the Government of India to drive financing and funding into the research and innovation sectors in India. So our goal is to be a catalyst to help drive the rise of India as a research and innovation powerhouse. And so today, as we stand today, ANRF uses two major mechanisms. One is a classic grant type mechanism where we do more broad-based programs like the National Science Foundation does, giving grants to various projects that we welcome in our programs. And we are also doing mission mode grant programs, which are accelerator programs taking technologies from TRL 2 and getting into TRL 6. I'm happy to mention that we are going to be launching a program on what we call leapfrog innovations for leapfrog demonstrators for societal innovations. And this sector seems to be one of the interesting areas where it could be helpful. So that's coming out soon, but we are also working with MNRE on joint programs that we could be launching together going forward into the future. So these are a class of programs called the MAHA or Mission for Advancement of High Impact Areas type programs. We've done other programs on AI for science and engineering that includes forecasting and other sorts of areas in weather and climate. It includes a wide variety of other applications of AI in science, medtech, electric mobility, and so on. So those are all the grant programs. We also have a translational innovation program we have launched recently. Again, large centers for translation innovation. And then finally, we have for scale up of innovation. So the theme here is also around scale up. We have a fund for the private sector, 1 lakh crore fund. It's called RDI, Research Development and Innovation Fund, that is housed under ANRF. And we have already started giving up the capital to second level fund managers. So TDB and BIRAC each have gotten 2,000 crores already. They have already announced programs, CFP. So it's a very rapid operationalization. And I would credit my colleague Abhay Karanikarji from DST, who's really pioneered this and moved this forward. So I am not an expert on AgriPV, even though I have erstwhile worked in the renewables sector. But clearly, there is a lot of challenges and opportunities. I think there are a lot of technical challenges on how to make interesting architectures work and what kind of crops and other things to grow. How do you provide a combination of sunlight for the underlying plants as well as the harvesting, and then what are the interesting solar options to use, what is the combination of solar storage to use, what are the grid integration challenges, and especially the nature of the grid in the rural sectors, which tend to be far outliers compared to the more of the transmission grids and so on. So these are clearly a combination of interesting techno-commercial and I guess more social challenges. So I don't want to belabor because tread into areas where I have less knowledge about, but I look forward to learning more from my colleagues. So NRF would be welcoming more proposals and others in these areas. I would also want to mention that NRF welcomes partnerships. We have done partnerships with the Gates Foundation and others, the Vardhani Foundation, we've done partnerships recently with Google, Qualcomm, and others as well. So as an institution, we are driving a lot more collaboration across all of government and all of society. Okay, thank you. Look forward to it.
Thank you so much, sir. We now move on to the keynote addresses. May I invite Mr. Ashish Khanna to kindly deliver the keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Sarangi, dignitaries on the dais. I will be very brief because I'm not an AgriPV expert, but I do believe on this tremendous potential transformation for this. I'll briefly speak about three parts. First, reinforce what other speakers have said on the rationale for why AgriPV is very important. Second, the how is very important, so I will talk a little bit about what are the 3-4 things on the how. And third, because we are International Solar Alliance with 125 member countries, what it means for us internationally. On the first part, I think you heard it, but just to reiterate, that the main transformative potential for AgriPV is that it, especially for land-constrained countries, it tells that the food security and energy security need not be at odds with each other. It is actually completely possible to retain food security while also have energy. The answer for that is very clear because you heard from ETC some of the projections. Let me share some very initial projections that we did just for India. That India has a power density of around 400 to 750 kilowatt per hectare. So even just if 1% of India's agriculture land that is currently cultivated, roughly 3 million hectares, were to have use for AgriPV, you're looking at upwards of 2,500 megawatt just on that. So this is just a reminder that it's not about a land availability problem, it's a land use design problem. Now, one interesting thing on this is economics, and that is very important, that because some of the cropping patterns require a certain height, the civil structures of this are a little bit more expensive than rooftop. And that is frankly an issue that must be resolved in order to make it commercially viable. For example, currently it is assumed that AgriPV in India is roughly going to be around 5.5, 6 rupees. That's what we believe. That's definitely on a slightly higher side if you look at what are the competitive auctions for solar PV bids or even for solar rooftop. So this, according to me, is an industry aspect of how you're going to actually bring it down. It is still cheaper than some of the landed cost of a grid-based supply to farmers, which is often in the range of 7 to 8 rupees. In terms of how, I would say that one of the main policy imperatives starting with India would be how can AgriPV be part of an excellent initiative that government is already having on PM Kusum. And this is something that I was discussing, that what will it take to actually have a form of either a policy, but also some form of a capital support that may be needed to put AgriPV on a fast mode. One question internationally that may be relevant for India is whether there is a need for a national endorsed definition of what will classify AgriPV. That can have land use, minimum agriculture retention, acceptable land coverage ratio. I think those are questions that can be very important. There are pros and cons of how much detail you want to specify in a policy. The second question is on specifying some kind of a standard methodology to assess shading-linked yield impacts on farmers. Often this is expected to be compensated by some form of an income stream that farmers will get from AgriPV. But this question on what is the potential loss of income and what are the potential benefits is a very important element. Third, there are a lot of land use and groundwater rules. I think those will have to be looked at in terms of what it means in terms of looking at allowing AgriPV. And finally, what is the interface with a local distribution company? Because if you allow a lot more power to be evacuated, as it happened very rightfully with PM Kusum, in terms of very clearly specifying ABC and looking at the evacuation arrangements, some bit of DISCOM evacuation arrangement may be needed. Coming to the last element of what it means for us, we are actually hearing a lot of demand for AgriPV from across the world. We are actually undertaking a couple of studies internationally. There was a mention of Bhutan. We're also undertaking a separate study in Mauritius and a couple of other countries just on the AgriPV potential and what will it take in terms of a policy and a bidding methodology to get the private sector investment. So this is a very important element, both in terms of, as I mentioned, a policy, but also a standardized DPR that can be done for different cropping sites. India can do it, and then it can go across the world. Some bit of blended finance because of some bit of initial capital subsidy, but some bit of blended finance requirement. So these are very important elements that once it comes out of India, I believe in my limited understanding, Germany has done a lot of work on more than 10-15 gigawatts. So some bit of collaboration will help clarify some of those definitions. So a big message on this, whether you look at our neighborhood, whether it is Nepal and Bangladesh, land constraint, huge requirements for food security along with land constraint, whether it is with SIDS. I hear from all the countries who are small island states who like little bit of vegetables or foods to grow in spite of very limited land. So that's why we did it in Mauritius. Those are very important areas. And I really believe that based on what India is trying to do, when a big mission scale up for AgriPV, that can actually help being a role model for paving the path for rest of our 125 member countries as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now may I invite Mr. Santosh Kumar Sarangi to deliver his keynote address. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, esteemed panelists and distinguished guests here. It's always a pleasure to speak on a platform of TERI, and all the more pleasant when you are speaking of renewable energy. So this is an excellent platform to speak when one is speaking of the phenomenal journey that India has undertaken with regard to renewable energy. For any initiative to succeed, there are 2 or 3 foundational blocks. One is, of course, setting a roadmap and having the required political and administrative will to do it. And in that context, I think India is well positioned. We already have a 500 gigawatt roadmap for 2030. And if many of you have seen the recent Niti Aayog report, it talks of about 6,000 gigawatt of variable RE to reach net zero by 2070. So from that perspective, the roadmap as well as the will to achieve it, and especially in a country where the PM himself is backing this roadmap, is something which gives a lot of confidence to administrators, to the project developers, to the manufacturers to go ahead and invest in that particular segment. The second is managing the supply and demand side requirements. And that is one area where I think India has managed its ecosystem pretty well. And in this increasing deployment through a variety of measures, bringing in renewable purchase obligation, bringing in policies relating to renewable consumption obligation, undertaking transparent bidding mechanism which gives the confidence to discoms about the lowest price discovery and going ahead and signing PPAs and PSAs is something where India has done exemplary work, and ETC was mentioning about the lowest cost prices having been discovered in India. So whether it is in solar energy, wind energy, green hydrogen, in all of it, we are now discovering some of the lowest prices in the world. Similarly, on manufacturing, bringing in PLIs, bringing in ALMM, are measures which have given the confidence to manufacturers to set up manufacturing base. Because for a country which is looking at adding 6,000 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2070, it can't continue as an import dependent economy. So from that perspective, investing in manufacturing is something which is absolutely essential. And from that perspective, government has taken up a variety of measures, both financial and non-financial, to support manufacturing ecosystem in our country. It has also supported in terms of addressing some of the demand side measures, and that has come through encouraging distributed RE and higher citizen centric adoption. And those have been possible through some of the mega schemes like PM Suryaghar, which is looking at rooftop solarization of about 10 million households, and PM Kusum, which is looking at adding 35 gigawatt under farm solarization program. So this is again one of the largest farm solarization program in the entire world. And this has also contributed and has shown us the next path forward for Kusum, which is the farm solarization program. And I must commend the efforts of Suman, who is sitting here, who is leading this program in my ministry. And if I actually knew that she is coming here, I would have actually delegated this to her. Going forward, we are also learning that the farm solarization program would require some tweaking, and from that perspective, we see a great future for agri-photovoltaics in our country. Currently, there are multiple pilots which are happening in the country, and IARI is doing this pilot in multiple locations to identify the impact on the crops, and our National Institute of Solar Energy is also working with them to see the efficiency level of solar installations in those locations and trying to identify what kind of benefits would accrue in case of agri-photovoltaics. The initial findings have been very encouraging, and as one of my preceding speaker was pointing out, in certain category of crops, the yield seems to be going up. We are also doing this pilot in some tea gardens, which are relatively shade-loving plants, and trying to identify what kind of impact it has on tea growth and quality of the tea leaves which are coming out. But as I suggested, the initial results that IARI has shared with us seems pretty encouraging. We would wait for a while to see the final results. But notwithstanding that, we know that agri-photovoltaics is something which is now taking shape across the world, and there are 4 or 5 major countries like Germany, Japan, China, which have gone ahead and installed large number of agri-photovoltaics in their countries. So we are also planning to give it a push through government schemes. For any of the initiative to succeed, certain initial push by the government helps in bringing it to scale. It also helps them to bring down the cost, and also helps in pushing up manufacturing in that particular sector. So there are 2 areas in solar where we believe that government needs to chip in and give some kind of a support. And these 2 are agri-photovoltaics and floating solar project in the country. So on both these areas, we are working with Ministry of Finance to design schemes which will support these 2 initiatives. And yesterday only, we had a very long discussion with Ministry of Finance where Suman and my JS Subramaniam, both of them fought a very worthy battle to defend their proposals, and hopefully we will be seeing some results in the next couple of months, next 1 or 2 months. And this is an area where we are trying to scale up agri-photovoltaics, and we know that it has a higher capex because these are steel structures made of steel, which would have an initial uh, additional cost in terms of civil works, and to that extent a farmer would require certain support to undertake these kind of structures. And in this context, we are thinking of a capex which will be passed on to the farmer to experiment this, and we hope that in course of time this will also lead to a much larger adoption of agri-photovoltaics, and more importantly for India, a much larger distribution of RE generation across the country. Because as Ita was rightly pointing out, the system cost in India today is among the lowest, but we are seeing stress on our system because almost 75% of our solar is generated only in the 5 states, that is Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. Similarly, 85% of our wind generation comes only from those 5 states. So when you try to plan your transmission infrastructure to take the generated electricity from one corner of India to other parts of the country, and with transmission lines crisscrossing across the country, you have challenges both in terms of the cost of transmission infrastructure as well as grid management and grid stability related issues. So it is in the larger interest of our country to ensure that distributed RE comes up in different parts of the country, and the discoms are able to source it in their local areas. They save both in terms of the transmission cost payment, and they also have a better handle on managing the electricity which is getting generated. So from that perspective, solar, agri-photovoltaics and floating solar will have a lot of potential in some of the states which are not RE rich now. For example, some of our northern states, UP, Bihar, some of our eastern states, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, and some of the northeastern states. And keeping that in view, when we are designing our schemes, we are also apportioning a certain percentage of amount to be spent in these kind of states, so that we do not have a disproportionate development only in these 5 or 6 RE rich states. Going forward, I believe there is a great potential for agri-photovoltaics in our country, and some of the details will of course be shared by Suman in the next session. So I am not going into details, but the fact that agri-photovoltaics removes the constraint of land, and to that extent allows India to actually ambition 6,000 gigawatt of variable RE in future, is something that gives us a lot of comfort. And from that perspective, I think this particular discussion is very timely and will guide and shape India's future RE journey. Thank you all for organizing this and inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We now take a moment to express our appreciation to our distinguished speakers for their valuable presence and insights. I request Dr. Vibha Dhawan to please felicitate our speakers with a small token of appreciation. Starting with Mr. Santosh Kumar Sarangi. Mr. Ashish Khanna. Dr. Shiv Kumar Kalyanaraman. Ms. Priya Shankar. Ms. Ita Kettleborough. lastly, Mr. Umang Maheshwari. I request all the dignitaries to please be on the dais. Moving forward, we'll now conduct the release of the reports in two parts. Firstly, 4 reports will be released, starting with AgriPV Potential in India, Pathways for Sustainable Energy Food Solutions. For this, I would like to call upon the authors from my right side, Dr. Siddhita Yadav, Dr. Narendra Kumar Tiwari, and Ms. Himakshi Malik, to please come to the dais. I would request you all to please rise up and unveil the report. Next, we'll be releasing 2 reports, the REI baseline assessment reports, from one for Khare Energy Plant Madhya Pradesh and second of RenQ Plant Telangana. I would request partner from REI, Aisha Khosla, Program Director India, REI, to please come to the dais from my left side. And representatives from Khare Energy, Mr. Manish Khare, to please come to the dais. And from RenQ, Dr. Lakshmi, to the dais, please. And lastly, the authors from my right side, Dr. Narendra Kumar Tiwari, Ms. Himakshi Malik, myself, Ishita Vaur, and Paulami Chaudhary, and Mr. Prabodh Vaidya. Thank you so much. Now, we move forward to the release of AgriPV Detailed Project Report Framework. For that, I would like to call upon Ms. Sashmita Patnaik from ICC to please come to the dais for the release of the report, and the authors and Mr. Subramaniam Pulipaka from IA, and Shubhashri Chakraborty as well. And the authors being Dr. Narendra Kumar Tiwari, Ms. Himakshi Malik, and I, Ishita Vaur. Moving forward with the launch, now we have 2 digital launches. One is a report from ETC, Unlocking Solar at Scale, how agrivoltaics overcome land constraints in India's energy transition, and the digital AgriPV business model selection tool. I would like the dignitaries to please rise up and have a photograph session with the digital launches. Thank you so much to all the dignitaries. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Vibha Dhawan for the closing remarks of the session.
Very good afternoon to all of you, and I'll say what an interesting discussion. So really speaking, it's so difficult when the panel is so rich and everyone has spoken about the concept and what is the potential of agri-photovoltaics. But I'll say something little different, and that comes from my basic training, which is in plant sciences. Because one of the things which was mentioned over here, what is going to be the impact on crop yields? Because if we look at the population pressure, we really can't afford any crop drag. And what we actually want is increase in productivity. And also if we can prevent post-harvest losses. And that is what this particular agri-photovoltaics has potential for. Let's look at, because what we have done over the last so many years, we have germplasm banks. We have saved all the germplasm that we had ever since civilization started, more or less. All CGAIR centers, they have saved of specific crops. And then there are new biotechnological tools whereby you can modify what you require. So all this time, we were talking about that due to climate change, countries like India that may lose crop productivity of important crops like wheat and rice to 20-25%, but now there is a possibility that you revisit your germplasm as well as look at, because with shading, the temperature is going to come down. And that reduction in temperature is actually going to ensure that we don't lose productivity. And as I said, it is now marrying of various technologies, so crop scientists will also have to work towards what crops will grow under shade. The other most important thing which we normally neglect, that is post-harvest losses. We are talking about anywhere from 35 to 45% of the crops getting lost. You don't require anything, no technology, it's only ensuring that you don't lose. What is happening to our farmer? He is a loser. If it's a bumper crop, there is glut in the market, and if the crop fails, definitely he loses. But now there is an opportunity, because there will be energy available at the rural level. They can set up cool chambers, they can decide when to sell the produce. And whatever they can't sell, and that happens very frequently, we have a project in Uttarakhand. So if it rains, they don't know what to do with the fruit. They don't even pluck those fruits because they cannot send it to Delhi or any market. So now they will be able to process this because there is energy available. Let's look at 10 years back, we had debate on fuel versus food. And it was that we cannot divert our food towards fuel production. But here no one is asking diversion. Here it is that you have energy. And that energy can also be used for fueling your kitchens. Solar cooking is becoming common. You are talking about electric vehicles, maybe electric tractors, and so on. So the entire economy at rural level is going to develop. And let's also look into what is happening today, because we simply neglect that there is migration largely of male colleagues to metros. What kind of life, I should say, the families are living? They themselves are forced to live in slum-like situation, and their families, it's something like it's wife, old parents, children who are in the village. So once you provide, and then we also say there is carrying capacity of the city, and cities like Delhi perhaps already have expanded beyond that limit. So none of us is happy. But once you have job opportunities provided at the village level through agri-photovoltaics, the socio-economic problems are also taken care of. And in that connection, I'll say that we started with the project Light a Billion Lives, when we never had electricity in the villages, but now happily all the villages are electrified, although not 24/7. And the other issue becomes affordability. but then can we think of renewables for livelihoods? And that is what we are going to launch tomorrow. And agri-photovoltaics, I'm sure, is going to play a very crucial role. The other thing, let's also remember that decentralized energy production will also reduce burden on the grids, and you won't have to carry electricity over long distances. So with these words, I'd like to thank all our partners for this session and all our partners who are supporting Terry to do research, and I do look forward to working with all of you. Thank you so much.
Before the panel discussion, it is my honor to invite Padma Shri Dr. A.K. Singh to deliver a special address on AgriPV prospects in India. I'll please request everybody to settle down for the special address. Over to you, sir.
A very good afternoon to each one of you. I'm A.K. Singh, professionally rice breeder, basmati rice breeder, and I have been director of Indian Agriculture Research Institute. And the first AgriPV project at IRI was initiated during my tenure, and it has come to a shape now. So a lot of good things that have been said about it, so don't mind if I say something that we need to ponder upon, which could be bottleneck and how do we address those issues, which is very, very critical. Importance of AgriPV is known, it has been discussed and you all are aware about it. So I need not to go into that. I agree with the concept fully, and IRI established a center of excellence on AgriPV, particularly studying the different orientation of panels, be it tracking system, rotating system, and tree-like spacing. And different companies, different manufacturers are coming. We also have done experiments on rice crop, in wheat crop. We have completed one rice and wheat cropping system. And the other one, which was mentioned by Mr. Sarangi, is being tried with leafy vegetables and things of that kind. Also, a good number of farmers who are in my contact, they have got AgriPV, large setup in and around Delhi villages. One is in Daryapur village, Satyavan. He has 1 acre AgriPV program with him. And then Ujwa Krishi Vigyan Kendra has been doing this for quite some time. The general experience is that when we do it with leafy vegetables like spinach, like coriander, turmeric, ginger, which are underground and they are mostly shade loving, there is no loss of production because of shading, maybe some increment in yield. But when we had done experiment with potato, the tuber size has reduced drastically. And also in case of peas, because of shading effect during winters, there has been high incidence of powdery mildew, disease development, and those things happens. So the appropriate choice of crop is extremely important. Which crop will work, which crop will not work. Leafy vegetables, certainly they are shade loving, and those crops which are grown during spring, summer, now the season is starting. That could be very good for AgriPV, particularly in a harsh climatic conditions like Delhi, where temperature goes up to 45, 46. There, if you have to grow cucurbits, if you have to grow some summer vegetables, the shading effect is beneficial. As a matter of fact, it will give advantage. But then we must think that leafy vegetables and cucurbits and things of that kind is not the food security of the country. We also must think that these are not the crops that are grown in a very large area. Area-wise, if we see the maximum impact comes from rice, which has 44 million hectare, wheat has got 32 million hectare area. And if that is to be put into the AgriPV system, what is going to happen to the crop? That is, one has to very systematically study. I don't know if anybody has pondered to study the temperature variation in the top 1 meter of the solar panel. Because of solar panel heating, the temperature rise happens over the panel. And this rise in a wheat field, particularly you all know that in month of March, from 25th to 30th March, if there is 1 or 2 degree rise of temperature, the yield falls down by 20%. This is what we call as terminal heat stress. And terminal heat stress is a very devastating factor in case of wheat. So we always pray that the end of March is not dry and hot, windy. Otherwise, the wheat production in 1 year can fall down to 10 million tons. So the question is, if the solar panel temperatures are rising temperatures in the ambient environment there over 1 meter or so, these things need to be critically analyzed, and large scale experimentations have to be done. So we have done very little. I participated in second agrivoltaic congress in Amsterdam, and we were taken to a dairy farm where they had put agrivoltaics in a, of course you can't call it as agrivoltaic, you call it as annual or dairy voltaic. So the dairy voltaics on the grazing land of 400, 500 acres, big, chunk of land, these vertical panels were placed, vertical panels. The spacing between 2 panels was about, say, 10 meters to 20 meters. Now imagine a cow enters from here, and it is covered from both sides, a panel height more than my height, vertical panels, and then cow has to graze straight, and then once the panels are over, it has to take a right turn or left turn, and then come to the. What kind of effect it will have on the psychology of cow, the hormonal imbalance of cow, the quality of milk produced by the cow, because free grazing has got a different effect altogether. I have a good friend of mine, his name is Satyavan, nearby, and he has a unique selling price. He's called Organic Chacha, and his unique selling point is that he does not tie his cows with any rope. So they are free grazing cows. Even when they are in the yards, they are kept free. And therefore, whatever milk and ghee is produced from those cows is stress-free, and it sells for 3,000 rupees a kg, and there is a queue. So there are different kinds of things, I think, and a lot needs to be studied in this direction. Now coming to the policy issues, I have time, maybe few 2, 3, 4 minutes now, or you have some constraint of time. Okay. You see, when we are talking of agrivoltaics, we are talking about taking the benefit of electricity generation while doing farming. And this is essentially being projected as a project for the farming community of India, for farmers of India. Okay? The small and marginal farmers, which are 86% farmers having less than 2 acres of land holding. We are talking about them. Now, actually what is happening? The farmers are not in a position to invest 1.5 crores for agrivoltaic system of 1 acre. So some investor is coming, investor is putting money on the farmer's field, and like farmers were renting their land earlier for 40,000 rupees an acre for 1 year, that's lease cost. It can go at maximum 1 lakh rupees in certain areas of Punjab and Haryana, 60,000 to 1 lakh rupees per acre per year, including rice and wheat crop. That's the rental value. When somebody is putting agrivoltaic on 1 acre field of farmers, he is giving him 3 lakh rupees, right? So the total that he is getting is 3 lakhs that he would get otherwise if he is renting out only 60,000 or 70,000. But he has to sign an agreement for 25 years. Now this is one of the major bottlenecks that no farmer is ready to. I have been interacting with so many farmers across the country. Nobody wants to give his motherland for a lease of 25 years. Because who has seen 25 years? So that's the problem. What will be the implication? How it is going to work out? This is a major challenge. Number 2, when we look into the benefit sharing, how much money an investor is putting in having a solar plant, and what is the investment from the farmer side. Farmer, as a farmer, I am putting my 1 acre land And if I'm located in Delhi around, the value of my 1 acre land is 1.5 crores. It takes the same amount, 1.5 crores, to put up a 700 megawatt agrivoltaic plant on 1 acre. So you are also investing 1.5 crore, I am also investing 1.5 crores. But in return, what I am getting 3 lakh rupees, and you are getting electricity generation of 60 to 70 lakhs rupees. So the profit that is coming to farmers, this model, is hardly less than 10%. And this 10% margin, if you want to sign an agreement for 50, 25 years, nobody will do that. The question is that unless we become a partner of equality, equal partners into the business opportunities, the things will not move. We will have to then exploit, the railway tracks of hundreds and thousands kilometers which are lying there. On both sides of the railway tracks, you have 40 meters land. This side and that side, they can be put into agrivoltaics. They will not be agri, they will be voltaics. You can generate whatever energy you want. You have vast tract of land in, Bhind, Murena, Gwalior. You go to those areas and it is all barren. There is nothing. Put the voltaic system there, produce electricity. If it is to be done on agricultural land, it has to be seen in context of a poor farmer who would expect sufficient benefit from the investment of land that he is making and the money that is being generated from the entire process to the investors. So I think there are many things to say, but I will not, this is too bitter to say, but I will not speak more. So I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
I would request Sir to please stay for a little. Sir, I would request you to please stay, and I would request Mr. Girish Sethi to please felicitate. Okay, thank you so much, sir. Now I would request the panelists for the session 2 to please come on the dais. Ms. Suman Chandra, IAS, Director, MNRE. Mr. Moez G. Sheriff, India Energy Lead, World Bank. Mr. Kan Garg, Chief of Unit Investments and Private Sector Engagement, ISA. Mr. James from Principal Energy Specialist, ADV. Mr. Indranil Goswami, Partner and Lead Clean Energy, Energiva Ventures. Mr. Suresh Yadav, Director, Commonwealth Secretariat, UK. Ms. Zorika Crisoli, Project Director, Indo-German Cooperation on Agri-Photovoltaic, GIZ. Mr. Subramaniam Pulipaka, CEO, NSCFI. Lastly, Mr. Vivek Saraf, CEO and co-founder, Sunseed APV. Now I would request Mr. A.K. Saxena, Senior Director, Electricity and Renewables, Delhi, to please moderate the session. Over to you, sir.
Very good afternoon to all of you. Very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for coming for this important session on AgriPV. First and foremost, I would like to apologize in advance because the time is the biggest constraint we have on hand now. For the security reasons, we were told to sort of finish by 3:30, which is already there. So I think we will stretch a little bit. But my request to all the panelists will be to limit their observation to one or two key action points which they would like to emphasize for moving forward from the pilots to the implementation and the models. Now, I would not be speaking much, only I would like to say only one or 2 points. We have 4 categories of sort of, I've tried to group all the panelists into 3 categories. First category is those who have been there with the pilot implementations in some form, and of course the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is into that category. Second category, we have the distinguished experts from the funding agencies and the support organizations like Energiva, ADB, World Bank. And the third category, we have the international perspective coming from the Commonwealth Secretariat and the International Solar Alliance. So to start with, I would request Mr. Vivek Saraf to give the implementer's perspective and the design optimization perspective. Over to you, Mr. Vivek.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So I'd received a couple of questions as well in this regard, so I'm going to start with that. So we have experience doing a lot of research on agrivoltaics and developing systems, so to speak, coming from that perspective. Sir mentioned about design. So I think one of the key things to take care of in agrivoltaics. So right now what we see is more of thumb rule based design rather than kind of doing some scientific analysis based on specific crop requirements, specific cultivar requirements within that crop, and obviously the location at which you're setting this up. So what happens in agrivoltaics is that with a certain whatever configuration of panels that you set up, you're going to be changing the light available to the crop, you're changing the microclimate, which is essentially the leaf temperature, the vapor pressure deficit. And now that is changing dynamically by time of day and the day of year. So if you have 40% coverage of panels, at any given instant, there's 40% area under shade, which is getting only diffuse light and no normal light. So now you have to understand what's happening at that location, in that configuration, and now relate it with how the crop is going to respond to that. Now different crops will respond to this in different ways, and there are different physiological processes within the crop. So most importantly, you would have heard photosynthesis, but then bud initiation, flower drops, sunburn of the fruit. So there's some things that agrivoltaics is helping, some things it's harming. And then you need to figure all of that out in totality to be able to make decisions so that you don't get unexpected outcomes, you get commercially viable and bankable projects.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot for sticking to the time limit which I had in mind. May I now request Mr. Subramaniam Pulipaka, who has been associated with this activity for quite long. I would request you to give the perspective from the key industry body who has been in this.
Thank you, sir. And even coincidentally today morning, we were discussing with our team that in a month or so, it'll be 8 years since NSCFI is dealing with agrivoltaics, and 7 years personally to me. And journey has been very, very satisfying. I'll not go much into that. But since you have asked a pointed question, today agrivoltaics is at a precipice. We will, if everything goes well, we will explode both figuratively and literally in terms of installations. In terms of prioritizing and scaling up from pilots to installation, I think we should think of the 5 Fs. Last 3 years since we set up India Agrivoltaics Alliance, thanks to the support of ICC, Bloomberg, which Priya mentioned, we have some of our Principal Action Committee members here, Zurika, Terry is of course here, and then we have C-Step here with Saptak and all. We had a lot of interactions with farmers, energy and FPOs and all. And the entire discussion boils down to 5 Fs: food, fodder, fiber, fertilizer and fuel. Now, what role agrivoltaics can help in terms of prioritizing these 5 Fs is where I think our future will depend on. Secretary Sir mentioned that eastern states are very good in agriculture, but solar deployment wise they are lagging. So there agrivoltaics becomes a fuel source for them. Western states where arid regions are there, where we have already installed more than 60% of barren land became solarized, that will help us convert, agrivoltaics will help us convert that land into a food generating land. Sir just gave us dairy voltaic inputs before in his keynote speech. So fodder is a big deal today. UK, Ita mentioned about it in the beginning. UK is coming out with a new concept and trying to promote more grazing related applications. The other day I saw Zorika shared a research paper in our group on how fodder is going to be important part. So that is the third part. Fertilizer and fiber are some things that go a long way. There was a GIZ report on green hydrogen with agrivoltaics, which definitely will be a very good feedstock to fertilizers as we go ahead and integrate the value chain. Fiber is definitely our, in our DNA as a country, fiber has always played an important role. And as we go ahead, I think agrivoltaic should be definitely integrated with it. With this, my conclusion in terms of the remarks would be that we need to look at states as a country when we talk about agrivoltaic policy rather than a country as a whole, because each state today has its own potential when it comes to solar and agriculture. So I'll rest my points here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Subramaniam. May I now request Ms. Sasmita Patnaik to give the perspective as a co-founder of the India Agrivoltaic Alliance with NSE5. Over to you. She's not there? Oh, I'm sorry then. So may I now request Ms. Zorika from the, she's a major knowledge partner of this initiative and a facilitator to the AgriPV activities. So may I now request her to give the impressions she has.
Thank you.
Please.
Yes, thank you very much. I was also asked to give a bit of perspective of land use and agri-photovoltaics in India regarding the land use. But allow me also, very briefly, to combine India and global perspective, and India part of, of one of the global leaders. Yesterday actually, we released the report on land legality for regarding possibilities of large upscaling of agri-photovoltaics in Madhya Pradesh. And India is very beautiful, but also complex country when it comes to the land. Land is an emotional thing, and in Madhya Pradesh there is a so-called land revenue code released in 1959, and that act regulates land use, land diversion, and also it restricts actually leasing of agricultural land for only 1 year. This has to be taken into consideration when we talk about PPAs and 25 long PPAs, right? So that some portion of it is very nice in theory, but when it comes to the practice, I think also MNRE together also with the other ministries is very cautiously taking care of aspects of farmers. What does it mean for farmers, land conversion, tax issues, etc. So that those questions would be are taken very carefully by MNRE. I'm very grateful for them for that. And it should not be like when we talk about agri-photovoltaics, strictly like energy or agriculture. Let's label it like agriculture enhanced by energy, meaning allowing also kind of mixed use, double use of land, which will not jeopardize farmers in losing their incentives, in losing their other benefits that they are gaining. So that is also a crucial point here when it comes to the land and also farmers. And I will finish it with this aspect. No?
Thank you so much. May I now request Mrs. Suman Chandra, as we heard Mr. Sarangi, Secretary MNRE, to say about that. She is one of the key sort of a warrior now for the two new and emerging technologies, AgriPV and floating solar PV, to take from whatever level we are now. So over to you, Mrs. Suman Chandra.
Thank you for the opportunity. So let me begin by segueing from what Madam Dhawan said in the morning. We are no more sitting in a eat versus heat dilemma, and we have transitioned to more of a food, water, energy, security nexus. And here we are dealing with unmanageable animals. Unmanageable animals in the sense that land is a state subject, so it is in the jurisdiction of several, right? And electricity is a concurrent subject, so it is dealt both by center and state and highly regulated sector. So when we amalgamate something so complex and are providing solution or looking to provide solution for the future needs, we have to tread cautiously, because agriculture is a very, very fragile political economy in India. And that is for the right reasons, because you are catering to the equity piece of renewable energy now when you amalgamate AgriPV with energy needs, right? So therefore, for us, we are looking at as much evidence as there can be before we deploy, and we want to deploy at scale. So we have a lot of, we usually call us a bunch of dozen, dirty people who are doing this every day, day in and day out. We see the same faces on all the several forums. So 2-3 years back, we launched this Center for Excellence along with Indo-German Partnership and IARI, involving Ministry of Agriculture to evolve the framework for what would be the crops that can be taken under the various agroclimatic zones. Because one part of India doesn't really speak exactly the similar way to the rest, like the second part of India. So what grows in west doesn't grow in east, and the advantages of west do not obtain in the east. So therefore, physiological plug was very beautifully given in the morning by Vibha ma'am. And carrying on from there, IARI has now evolved a crop matrix as to what would be the safe crops to go under the first deployment of the AgriPV deployment that we're going to do. From a policy perspective, we have a legacy scheme called PM Kusum. And in that legacy scheme, when we started in 2019, we only allowed for the barren land to be taken for the renewable energy power plants up to 2 megawatt. So from our experience, some of it got taken off, and some of the states had this appetite that the fertile land and the agricultural land also should be allowed the same opportunity, which is how the idea of agrivoltaic within the PM Kusum emerged. So therefore, in 2024, we changed that barren land limitation to a mixed land. And we lifted that technical limitation of just having a ground-mounted plant to plants which are on stilt. That allows you for the co-location of both the energy infrastructure and the food infrastructure. That's how a lot of these plants, like Adarsh Farm, one of the reports got launched today, came up. The issue is that right now we had under PM Kusum feed-in tariff sort of a structure where we were only compensating the discoms for their performance-based incentive, because it's like because of the increased civil cost, there's a enhanced tariff and not all discoms are ready to buy it. So as we go into the second phase of the PM Kusum, we are looking at how do we upfront that cost so that that is available to the farmer, and the farmer then can structure his projects and choose the crops which are scientifically sort of guided to them, and we build that capacity. So that's where that's the precipice which Subramaniam also referred to. I always say agrovoltaic is a thing whose time has come. The only thing is how we deploy it.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. Now, moving on to Mr. Indranil Goswami, I think I would like you to give the perspective from the ecosystem builder for smart agriculture, or climate smart agriculture, I should say rather. Over to you.
Thank you. From a philanthropic catalytic capital point of view, I would say there would be 3 major interventions at which we can look at. First is in the initial stages of development, like doing the base groundwork for understanding the crop cycles and how it would be impacted in much more details, and as it has already been mentioned about the crop matrix, how we can further strengthen that crop matrix and understand the dynamics of PV adoption in agriculture sector, and come up with recommendations for the which needs policy level interventions. That is one aspect of it. Second is help create some sort of risk guarantee mechanism for investors to come in and participate in actual large-scale investment from pilots in terms of having some sort of insurance-linked financing mechanism which can help broader application of broader implementation of agrivoltaics at scale. And the third aspect would be work with the ecosystem to unlock the potential of commercial capital that is available with institutions like Mudra, SIDBI or NABARD, and help them mobilize in a catalytic way to accelerate the process of agrivoltaic adoption in the country. I would leave it at that.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely sorry that I've been reminded that we have to close as early as possible. So I think I'll request each one of you, starting from Mr. James Kolantraj, Mr. Moez, and thereafter Mr. Suresh Yadav and Mr. Kan Garb, to give 1 minute or whatever you want to say as your key action agenda for taking this from pilot to the real scale.
Thank you. So basically, from the regional perspective, we have done some pilots, especially in other countries. We are working with UP NEDA in doing a roadmap and also do a pilot now. And in Sri Lanka, we already did, since the secretary mentioned earlier, we have did a pilot in Tea Estate, where it has already identified that the yield is not less than what than before, and they have also earning additional profits. And as well as it has been clearly mentioned that there is a savings in evaporation and transpiration. So these both are already confirmed by our pilot in that. So Bhutan, we are working with Terry to do this. And we have been fortunate to work with MNRE on PM Kusum in Maharashtra and also in the PM Suryagar, which were having several good guidelines which really every stakeholder need to adapt. Like utilities need to do this. The developers need to do this. Probably that will help. Basically, agri photovoltaic cannot be off grid. It should be grid connected. So the bringing in of utilities is, as Mom earlier mentioned, that is one of the key things which we need to make sure that it is bankable, and also we have a long-term income available. So that makes it more bankable. Thank you.
Thank you, James. So yes, I'll be quite brief since the World Bank, has not had so much involvement in AgriPV so far. But in India, we have been providing technical assistance and supporting the PM Kusum program, for example, in Punjab, and doing studies on how to optimize the models. So we would love to provide support to MNRE in really making the program, maybe the Kusum 2.0, and support to AgriPV a reality. And the way I see it, from whatever limited knowledge I have, it's about finding the right business model that balances the interests of the farmers on the one hand and the developers and the utilities on the other. So, there is the purely kind of energy perspective, and then you have the farmers and optimizing the crops and the yields and so on. So how to marry the two and how to overcome the issue that most farmers are small, poor, maybe they don't have the funds to invest. But on the other hand, if you rely purely on the developers, then all the benefits will go to the developers and not to the farmers. So we would love to work with MNRE and other partners, maybe to study the different models have been deployed around the world, let's say in China, in Europe, and find what would be the best, the most optimal business models that would apply in India, and maybe try it through some pilots. So anyway, this is just an opening, and I think we can go much deeper. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to save time, and I'll add up 3 points. One is that
we very much welcome all the reports and all the work which has been done. And in the Commonwealth Secretariat, we'll be very happy to collaborate with you, with our member countries, to see that how it can be adopted. And we have a climate finance advisors in the member countries. We're very happy to develop the projects which can be funded by multilateral agencies, vertical climate finance agencies. That's a offer on the plate for you. And lastly, I would like to say that a lot of variables have been talked about: the crop yield, the temperature, the situations, and the countries. Every country has a very unique DNA of the crops and the lands. So very happy to work with you for the further pilot on making those systems digital twins, using AI to simulate and see that what works, which country, which temperature, which situation. With this, I have saved some time, 50 seconds for you, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Khan.
Thank you. Yes. So just in the interest of time, while the conversations are very nuanced, they have turned very nuanced in a country like India, our African friends, and this is where I want to shift some focus there as well, our African friends are really struggling on the basics of solar pumps and agrivoltaics. And this is where I think ISA, with its convening power, we have a $75 million Africa solar facility. We are helping the standards, the Ministry of Energy, Water, land there in terms of suitable policies, and also supporting through our star centers the capacity building of technical training institutes. So I urge that in the coming weeks and months, we have also launched a 1 million solar pumps program for Africa, where we'll be facilitating 1 million solar pumps in the next 3 years. I invite all of you to join hands with the ISA so that we can make use of capacity building, funding, and technical assistance coming together to build an investable pipeline of projects in Africa. I'll stop myself here, but happy to discuss more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just like to end it by saying that thank you so much, all of you. I think in 24 minutes, we have almost finished 9 panelists. I think that's a great achievement. Big round of applause to all of you. Thank you so much. So I will just request you to, I think we will